Without further ado, Karol Collymore, County Commissioner number 2 in alphabetical order.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Good. I am Karol Collymore. I'm running for County Commissioner in District 2. I will talk a little bit about myself, and then I will leave plenty of time for questions because I know we have 10 minutes. I am originally from Panama. My parents moved us to Albuquerque, New Mexico when I was 2. That is where I grew up and went to school, University of New Mexico, and there is where I discovered my love for politics. I was in my senior year of college, and as many of us do at the end of school, we have fulfilled all our credits but still need a few more. And I was taking yoga and maybe a couple of dance classes, and a friend of mine said, why don't you come and intern on Al Gore's presidential race? And I said, sure, and within 3 weeks I was hired as African American coordinator for the coordinated campaign, and that is where I fell in love with the idea of public service and working in politics. From there, I went on to work at the state party, and then jumped onto another congressional race, Richard O'Meara for Congress in the 1st District. By that point, I was 24, about to be 25, and ready to do something else, and I found a job at the American Heart Association doing a program called Jump Rope for Heart and Hoops for Heart, and packed all of my stuff in the car and moved to Portland, and that's where I have been for the last almost 8 years. Pretty quickly there, I realized I love doing fun jumping rope and playing hoops with kids, but I miss politics and I miss the activism, so I was hired on as development director at Pro-Choice Oregon. And I worked there for a couple years and moved on and did more progressive fundraising at Basic Rights Oregon. Worked for Virginia Linder for Oregon Supreme Court, and she became the first openly gay elected official statewide in Oregon, and she's now a Supreme Court justice here at the state level. And there on the campaign trail, I met Jeff Cogan, who was running to be in this seat at that time. And after our campaigns were over, we met, he hired me, and that is where I have been ever since, working for the folks in North and Northeast Portland out of Commissioner Jeff Cogan's office. I worked on such projects as the St. John's Farmers Market, which was a great neighborhood project where the folks out there really said, we need access to food like everyone else has access, and so I made a few calls. I called Portland Farmers Market and said, hey, we have a great space for you. And they said no, but we will sit down with you. No, but we'll sit down with you and help you flesh out how you start a market. So I sat with them for 2 hours and made a few phone calls to some other neighborhoods that had started their own market. And there we went, and we started out, and within a year, a big committee had formed, and I stepped out, and they moved forward, and in 18 months, they had a farmer's market, and it's celebrated its end of season a few weeks ago, and so that was a really great project that I was proud to be a part of. We also opened the Kenton Library, which was a project that the folks in North Portland had wanted for 25 years after their third library branch had closed, and the levy money passed. At the same time, Jeff was elected, and the first week I was at work, he said, we need this library to open by the time it's time for me to run for office again. So we set to work, and the Kenton branch opened up in March of 2010. It's in a space that's owned by a North Portland resident who has lived there for years and has owned the building for years and wanted nothing more than to use that building for a library, so that wish came true. I also got to work on a great farm project at the Juvenile Justice Center, where we put kids that were at risk and on probation at work farming, which sounds a little crazy, and it was, because they were like, what are you making us do? By the end of the summer, they had grown close to 500 pounds of food, and they were feeding the kids that were incarcerated and giving some of the food to the Oregon Food Bank, and they couldn't get enough. They couldn't believe that we were stopping them. And this program's also in its 2nd year. And for me, that's the example of the kind of work you can do when you're an activist commissioner. You can make really amazing things happen on limited funds that really do help a tremendous amount of people. So moving forward, when Ben Westland passed away, and my boss called and said he was running for chair, and he said, Karol, I think you should run for this seat. And I said, okay, here I am. And I'm really excited because as much as I love the work that I did with Commissioner Cogan, now Chair Cogan, I get to unveil the things that I want to work on. And so throughout the summer and throughout campaigning, a constant message I heard was we need more healthcare access. And so I have a strong passion for healthcare and addressing the disparities that exist within for communities of color and the transgender community. I envision a healthcare center much like our Gateway Center for Domestic Violence Services, which is a partnership between the city and the county. We have DV nonprofits plug in, and women can come in and they get one-stop service. You get a restraining order, you can get food stamps, you can get emergency funds, and you can talk to culturally specific providers. I think we can do the same model for healthcare for women from preconception to when they send their kids off to kindergarten, so they don't have to be running around town for services. I also want to continue on the food angle. There are food deserts in outer northeast Portland and outer North Portland that need to be addressed, not only with farmers markets, but with availability for community garden space. The city and the county signed an agreement to do 1,000 community gardens in 2 years. We have surplus land. The city has the knowledge to build community garden structure. The county has a farmer on staff. We're ready to unveil and start to make some of these gardens for people who don't have access otherwise. We also need to talk about how we bring low-income, more affordable groceries out to these areas, save-ons, food-for-lesses, other things like that. But also, most important, because the county commission is districted, the city is not, the county is. We need to be available and receptive to community needs. A lot of the projects that we worked on in District 2, and I gave you a very short list, came from the desires of communities and neighborhood associations who came together and said, this is what we need help with. And so your commissioner needs to be responsive to that and active to that. And I want to be that commissioner. So a little bit about me personally, I volunteer quite a bit. I was on the board of Hands on Portland, the Oregon League of Conservation Voters, the Basic Rights Oregon Political Action Committee. I'm now on the board of the Portland Playhouse and looking for other opportunities now that some of my other boards have turned out. But I feel I can be successful in this race and successful in this community because I've spent my time here reaching out to the community, whether it's the environment, whether it's issues of choice, whether it's issues of equality. Those are all issues that touch people that are of all races, of all genders, of all orientations. And that is the most important thing, because when you're a representative, you represent all people. And so I'm just thrilled to have the chance. I hope you guys will consider voting for me. I have flyers in the back that you can read about some of my endorsements and some other things that I'm excited about, and I am happy to take any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
If you're elected, what are your first 2 or 3 goals that you would have?
Sure. I think my first goal would be to get to work on the healthcare center. That's a one-stop center for women who can address their preconception issues, conception issues, and post-conception birth, and getting children ready for kindergarten. Our county library just got a grant to do African American specific reading programs to get students ready for kindergarten. I know there are various nonprofits around town that are doing anything from doula service to breastfeeding care to any number of things, and I feel like it will be very effective for them to be in one space. The other thing I want to work on is unveiling the community garden work with the city of Portland, so we can start to get folks that live in apartments and low-income housing that don't have lawn space access to those growing resources. The third thing I want to do, which is something I just learned about over the summer, but I'm really excited. We got a new director for the Multnomah Youth Commission, and he was from New York, and he did the same work in New York, and they worked closely with their school-based health clinics to talk to young teens about their reproductive health and care. And one thing he was surprised with that we don't do that. We don't do that at the county. We have over a dozen school-based health clinics, but the Youth Commission doesn't do peer-to-peer work with teens about their reproductive care, and I think that needs to happen. Roosevelt High School has the highest instances of teen pregnancy, and that is in North Portland. And we can start to address that because we have those clinics at the county. I have 1 minute, okay.
Do you support the library levy?
I do support the library levy. I think it's important. The library comes up for levy. I think it's every 4 years, and it would be nice to have some consistent funding for our branches so we can continue to keep the branches we have open, so we don't have another situation like we had in North Portland where one closed, and continue to expand programs like the African American Reading Program. Do I have like 10 seconds left? I have 30 seconds. Thank you guys so much. I'm thrilled to be running. I'm excited to be running with Loretta Smith. It's been a great race. We're all really sleepy, but it's almost over. So I've got lawn signs in the back. I've got flyers in the back. I'm sure some of you have gotten our mail, and it's a hard choice, but I hope you will choose me. Thank you.